Starting a certification can feel a little like walking into a new gym where everyone else seems to know which machines matter and which ones are just there to look impressive. And that feeling is even stronger when the topic is privacy management because the ideas sound familiar, but the exam has its own rules. The goal here is to make the CIPM experience predictable before you ever sit down to test, so your effort goes toward learning instead of guessing what the exam wants. You will hear people talk about privacy programs, policies, and governance, but the first confidence boost comes from knowing how the exam is built, how it is scored, and what the testing rules expect from you. When you understand the structure, you stop studying like you are collecting trivia and start studying like you are preparing to make decisions under pressure. By the end, you should be able to picture the exam day from check-in to submission and know what kinds of questions you will face, what a passing performance means, and what behaviors help you avoid unforced errors. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful way to think about the CIPM exam is that it is measuring whether you can manage privacy as a program, not whether you can recite laws like a walking encyclopedia. That means the exam tends to reward thinking in terms of processes, roles, accountability, and life cycle management, because those are the muscles you actually use when privacy becomes part of day-to-day operations. Structure is the blueprint that makes those ideas testable, so you should expect questions that touch different parts of a privacy program rather than staying in one narrow corner. Many exams separate knowledge into domains or topic areas, and even when you do not have the exact domain weights in your head, you can still study smarter by recognizing that the test is balanced across strategic planning, governance, and operational execution. If you feel tempted to go deep into a single favorite topic, remember that exams punish tunnel vision, and CIPM is built to check whether you can see the whole privacy program end to end. Your job is to train yourself to recognize which life cycle stage you are in, which stakeholder is responsible, and what a reasonable next action looks like. When you see a question on an exam like this, it rarely asks for the fanciest answer, and it almost never rewards the answer that sounds the most dramatic. Instead, it often rewards the answer that is most consistent with an organization behaving responsibly and predictably, because that is what a well-run privacy program looks like. That leads to a key testing skill, learning to separate what is important from what is urgent. A privacy incident might feel urgent, but the question may actually be testing whether you know the program controls that reduce incidents in the first place, like clear data handling rules, proper role definitions, and decision gates for new processing activities. Another common pattern is that multiple answers can sound plausible, but one answer aligns better with program governance, accountability, and repeatability. If you train yourself to ask, which option makes the organization more consistent next week and next quarter, you usually move closer to the intended answer. This is not about memorizing slogans. It is about learning how the exam translates real privacy management into testable choices. It also helps to understand what the exam is not trying to do, because that reduces anxiety and prevents wasted effort. The CIPM exam is not a courtroom contest, and it is not trying to turn you into a specialist in one country's statutes or a technical engineer configuring systems. You should still understand that privacy obligations can vary by jurisdiction and sector, but the exam is more focused on how you run a privacy program that can adapt to those obligations, track them, and operationalize them. If you think of privacy management as a bridge between rules and reality, the exam is checking whether you can keep that bridge standing when business priorities shift, new products launch, and data flows change. That means you will see questions about program artifacts like governance frameworks, policies, training, and measurement, because those are the tools a program uses to stay stable. The more you study with that mental model, the more the exam feels like a structured set of decisions rather than a surprise pop quiz. Scoring logic can feel mysterious because most certification exams do not simply give you a big percentage at the end, and even when they do, that number does not tell you much about what to do differently next time. The practical point is that scoring is designed to identify whether you met a minimum standard across the exam, not whether you were perfect. In many professional exams, not every question counts the same way, and some forms can be statistically adjusted so that different versions remain comparable, which is one reason two people can feel like they had different difficulty levels and still be treated fairly. This is also why chasing a feeling of certainty on every single question is a trap, because the exam is built to reward steady performance across many questions rather than brilliance in one corner. Your best strategy is to aim for consistent, disciplined reasoning and avoid panic when you hit a question that feels unfamiliar. If you keep your process stable, you protect your score even when a few questions try to rattle you. Another scoring reality that matters is that exams are designed with distractors, meaning wrong answers that sound like something a smart person might pick when they are rushed or overconfident. The easiest way to beat distractors is to slow down just enough to identify what the question is truly asking, because many wrong answers are answers to a different question. A classic example is when the question asks for the best next step, but one option describes a long-term strategy document and another option describes an immediate operational control, and your job is to choose the one that fits the timing and scope implied by the scenario. Exams also love to test role clarity, so you might see answers that are good actions but assigned to the wrong owner, which makes them wrong in a privacy program context. If you treat scoring as a measurement of decision quality under constraints, you stop trying to win every question and start trying to avoid predictable mistakes. That mindset is calmer, and it tends to produce better results. Testing policies are where people lose points without realizing it, not because the material is hard, but because exam day behavior creates friction. Policies usually cover identification requirements, acceptable items, breaks, timing, and what happens if technical issues occur in a remote setting or disruptions occur in a test center. The key is to treat policies as part of your preparation, the same way you would treat knowing where the parking lot is before a flight. You want zero surprises about what you can bring, what you must leave behind, and what is allowed during the session. If the exam is proctored, you should assume that actions that look harmless in daily life, like reading questions out loud, looking away from the screen, or having notes in view, can create problems. A privacy management exam is a knowledge test, but the testing environment is a rules environment, and you do not want to learn those rules the hard way. The safest approach is to plan for a simple, clean test setup and predictable behavior. Time management on exam day is a skill you can practice, and it matters because uncertainty tends to expand to fill the time you give it. Most candidates waste time not on hard questions, but on medium questions that feel almost obvious, where they second-guess themselves and reread the stem repeatedly. A better pattern is to build a steady rhythm. Read the question, identify the target concept, eliminate clearly wrong options, then choose the best remaining option and move on. If you get stuck, it is usually because you are trying to achieve certainty, and the exam does not require certainty. It requires good judgment. Some exams allow marking questions for review, and if that option exists for you, it can be used as a pressure release valve, but only if you do not turn it into an excuse to postpone every decision. Your goal is to avoid leaving easy points on the table because you ran out of time after wrestling with a few stubborn items. Think of time as a budget, and spend it where it buys you the most improvement in answer quality. Because this is an audio-first learning experience, it is worth building an internal checklist you can hear in your own head when you face a question. One part of that checklist is scope, meaning what level the question is operating at, strategy, governance, or operations. Another part is stakeholder, meaning who owns the decision, leadership, privacy office, legal, security, product, or frontline teams. Another part is artifact, meaning what the program produces, charter, policy, training, metrics, risk register, or assessment output. When you map those three ideas quickly, many questions become easier because you can tell what kind of answer belongs in that space. If the question is clearly about translating strategy into action, an answer that focuses on writing a legal memo might be off target, even if it sounds impressive. This kind of mental sorting is how beginners become consistent test takers without needing years of job experience. A common misconception is that passing requires memorizing every possible detail, and that leads people to study in a brittle way where they can repeat phrases but cannot apply them. The better approach is to understand relationships, like how a mission statement influences a program charter, how governance defines decision rights, and how policies become executable through procedures and training. Exams reward a mind that can connect those dots, because a privacy program is a system, not a stack of flashcards. This also reduces the fear of unfamiliar wording, because if you understand the relationships, you can translate the question into your own words and still answer it. Another misconception is that the exam is trying to trick you. A more accurate view is that it is trying to differentiate between someone who can manage a program and someone who only recognizes terms. The exam does not need to be cruel to do that. It just needs to be precise, and precision can feel like trickery when you are not used to it. Policies also include what happens if you fail, how retakes work, and what rules govern rescheduling or cancellations. And those details matter because they influence your stress level. If you treat the test as a one-shot event, every question feels heavier than it should, and that pressure can reduce performance. If you understand retake and rescheduling rules in advance, you reduce the emotional stakes and can focus on execution. This is not about planning to fail. It is about planning to stay calm. Privacy program managers succeed by building resilience into systems, and you can apply the same philosophy to your exam plan by knowing your options and avoiding last-minute surprises. Also, if the exam is delivered through a testing vendor, remember that the vendor's rules are part of your reality, even if they feel unrelated to privacy. Respecting those rules is a simple way to keep your attention on the content instead of the logistics. On the day itself, there is a sequence you can make routine: arrive or log in early, complete check-in requirements, read the instructions, and then start with a calm pace rather than rushing. Rushing early often leads to avoidable mistakes because your brain is still adjusting to the environment, and the first few questions are sometimes designed to be straightforward to help you settle. If you encounter a hard question early, do not assume the whole exam will be like that, because question difficulty is mixed by design. Focus on one question at a time and keep your body calm, because stress narrows attention and makes you miss key words like best, first, most appropriate, or primary. Those small words often determine which answer is correct. A steady approach also helps with reading comprehension, which is a bigger part of exam success than many people admit. If you think about test questions as short stories, you can train yourself to spot the plot quickly. The plot is usually a problem in the privacy program lifecycle, like unclear accountability, inconsistent data handling, weak oversight, or lack of measurement. The characters are the stakeholders, and the setting is the organization's maturity and risk posture. The question is often asking what the program manager should do to move the story from messy to manageable in a realistic way. That framing can sound playful, but it has a serious benefit. It pushes you toward program-centric thinking rather than detail hunting. It also helps you avoid answers that are technically true but operationally useless, like creating a perfect policy without a plan for adoption, training, and monitoring. Program management is about making the right thing easy to do and the wrong thing hard to do, and the exam tends to value that kind of practicality. One more test policy area that surprises people is how breaks and interruptions are handled. If you are testing remotely, interruptions from notifications, other people, or even your own habits can become violations, so you want to engineer a quiet, controlled environment. If you are testing at a center, you want to know the rules about leaving your seat, accessing personal items, and returning, because even a short break can disrupt your rhythm. The goal is not to be paranoid. It is to eliminate friction so your brain has fewer things to manage. Privacy management is full of small process decisions that prevent bigger incidents later. An exam day is similar in that small planning choices prevent big distractions. When your environment is stable, your reasoning quality stays higher, and that is what scoring ultimately measures. As you prepare, it is helpful to adopt a simple internal definition of what success looks like on this exam. Success is answering most questions with a clear, repeatable process, not feeling brilliant, and not finishing with a dramatic story about how hard it was. You want a quiet kind of competence where you understand the structure, you respect the policies, and you make disciplined choices. If you do that, scoring becomes less scary because it becomes the natural output of a stable process. That is also a good preview of what privacy program management feels like in real life, because the best programs are not flashy, they are consistent, measurable, and trusted. When you match your study and test behavior to that reality, you are not just prepping for a score, You are training for the mindset the certification represents. Treat the exam as a managed process, and you will give yourself the best chance to perform well.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.